Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today we are going to be doing a ban list prediction slash sort of wish list. You guys kind of know how we usually do it around here. We just sort of go through, discuss the ban list, what I think we're going to have happen, what I kind of wish would happen, and just sort of kind of mix it all together. Anyways, before we get on into this, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Mammoth Headwear. As you guys can see, I've recently been watching The Boys, so I've got my sort of Hawaiian flowered shirt here for Billy Butcher, but also got on the hat for our sponsor Mammoth Headwear. If you guys are like me and you got a large head, definitely go ahead and try them out. They always got really cool stuff, especially around the holidays and fall coming up. They got stuff for like hunting, they got orange hats, all that kind of stuff, glow in the dark hats for people with big heads, dreadlocks, all that kind of cool stuff. But anyways, getting on into the ban list prediction, I think that this is going to be a very pivotal ban list. As you guys can see, YouTube is just flooded with all kinds of videos of people giving their predictions on what they think is going to happen, and just sort of the impact of this. There's a lot of people that are getting really stale with the format and whatnot. They're just thinking, do I even want to go to locals? Because all I'm getting is either wrecked by Tenpai, or I just can't do anything against Snake Eyes and all that stuff. I can't afford the new Fiendsmith engine. All that kind of stuff is rushing through players' heads, and so now is going to be a pivotal moment for Konami to decide what to do with the power level of the game, what cards to keep in, what cards to bring back, and so that's kind of what I want to discuss here. So, and like I was saying, if you guys go on YouTube, literally just type in like Yu-Gi-Oh! August 2024 prediction, and you will see just a plethora of videos of all kinds of content creators. Just everybody has this stuff on their mind. So we've kind of got things broken up into banned, limited, semi-limited, unlimited, and no change at all. So I don't even know where to start here. There's just so much stuff. I think the really big thing, the elephant in the room, is going to be Snake Eyes. We've got to kind of talk. I'm just going to pull everything out here that I have for Snake Eyes right away just to sort of get this part done. I think Promethean Princess, I'm not even really sure why I put this in here. This is just sort of a card that, in my opinion, I just want to stand up on a soapbox. This is a discussion for a whole other video, but at the current stage, I just want to talk about just what a bummer of card design there has been lately, especially with the Snake Eyes and Fire support cards. And Promethean Princess is no exception to that sort of phenomenon that's been going on. They just are continuing to print these cards that just have no reason being as absurd as they are. The fact that this entire sort of engine doesn't lock you into fires or anything at all, which is sort of the reason why there are other cards that are on this list, like Appaloosa and IP Masquerena, that are now getting discussed to be hit. So anyways, just sort of spoiler alert here, I don't think Promethean Princess will be hit. I don't think that now's the time or anything, or that it's even really on other people's lists, but I just kind of wanted to talk about it. The next thing is oh my gosh, this guy. Holy cow, the Poplar. Yeah, I don't think that this is going to be getting hit at all, as well as the Oak. Now, these are sort of, I feel like, the three major offenders. Oh, and I am missing one here. The original Sinful Spoils. This is another one that I think that can stay unlimited. I think that this is a really big one that it's the bridge of the deck. So two big things that I wanted to talk about here is I did not want to destroy the boss monster of the deck, and I did not want to destroy the bridge that connects the lore of Snake Eye to sort of to the other decks and stuff in this sort of the stretch of the lore. So in my opinion, I think that this is the right spot there for the original Sinful Spoils, but I do think that this is going to be the right spot here for Wanted. I think Wanted does need to go to limited. The fact that you get like just the two really great effects, it's just a little bit too much, especially with the graveyard recursion. Just putting that to one, sort of limiting the amount of times you're going to see it, and then just making sure that when it gets like those all of its effects off, that it's just going to be the one and done kind of deal. As for the Snake Eye Ash, this is kind of why I want to pull these cards up here. Now, I said I didn't want to destroy the bridge that connects the decks, and I did not want to destroy the boss monster. But guess what? I am sorry, but there's just no other way around this. Unless we want to have sort of like a Tearlaments style ban list where Konami just went and they axed all the cards and just put them to 1 or banned. Like they're like ban Kit Close, Limit Merly, Shiren, all those cards got limited to 1, along with the Ishizu cards, and then eventually 2 of them got banned. This is really the only way around it, unless you want to tackle all of these things. The main thing about Ash that I want to discuss is that this was printed as an OTS ulti, and as of late, Konami's been kind of telegraphing to us which cards, when they're printing them as ultis, as far as we've had of late, from what I can remember. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think that we've had an ulti in a while that's even gotten limited and banned for the same reason. A long time ago we had ones like Sprite Blue and stuff. People were discussing, does that card need to be limited or banned, all that kind of stuff. It never ended up happening, and then just kind of Sprites ended up maybe getting a little bit power creeped, and and Sprite Blue is fine. Same kind of things went with Tearlaments, but nobody was too afraid of that one. But then we had Cashier Fenrir, and Fenrir has not also gotten a limitation yet. And not that it can't, but I think that they've been pretty selective on these ones, sort of like the Stratoses of the deck. Like, they want them to be played, and they want them to be played at 3. So with the Flame Burge banning, I don't know if Wanted needs to be here, but I think it still is a really good call, especially because these 2 engines have been able to sort of sit around untouched for so long. I think that now is finally the time. Moving on to just sort of some wishful thinking. I've got Dryden on here as limited. I think that Dryden going to 1 would be pretty interesting. Like they've brought it back to 1 and then immediately had to relimit it, and they kind of realized the error of their ways there. But at the moment, no one's really playing Beast Warriors. Overall, there's just not really that much going on in that department, and I think that having like a quick effect pop on the field is fine, and Konami seems to like sort of the disruption-like effects. Nowadays, they seem to be moving away from floodgates and omni negates. So, I say give Dryden a try, and let's bring that card back. Moving on, then, I think that another good thing to discuss would be sort of the Lubellion and all of these other cards. So we have sort of the discussion of Gimmick Puppet, the Ido. Where's the other guy? We have Ra's Disciple, and then we have Lubellion. I think that really, Sanctifier, most people refer to him as. Overall, I think that really the main offenders here are going to be these 2 are sort of the big ones that are on people's lists. In my opinion, it's the same scenario as Crystron Halka Fibrax. Not exactly the same. Obviously, I think that what Crystron Halka Fibrax did to the game was a little more toxic, but still, you can't deny the toxicity of what Sanctifier does to the game. And we already have the trap card ban, so I think that really the right thing to do here is just to go ahead and limit him. I do want to bring your attention, sort of like I said with Ash, like you just sort of have to look at what Konami's been doing with their reprints, and they already gave Ash the OTS ulti. Another really big thing to consider is that we do have a lot of major events that have been going on lately. And then sandwiched around like nationals and stuff, they did announce that the ban list was announced to be released at the end of August. That's why there's been such a ramp up of all of these prediction videos, because we know when it should be coming, unless Konami dirtbags us and moves the ban list back even further. But at the moment, we know when the ban list should be coming. We also know that within a month and a half, we will be getting the new set of the 2024 Megatins, the Dueling Mirrors. And so far, Sanctifier has not been announced yet. It should be reprinted because it was in Cyberstorm Access, but we have not gotten confirmation on that yet. We got confirmations on a ton of other really popular cards from those sets, including just tons of Despia branded kind of cards. So in general, I think it's a little bit sketchy that they haven't announced this. That means that it is on their mind, like, hey, which cards do we want to announce that we will be reprinting? Okay, let's not mention Sanctifier because there's a chance that we will be banning it. So in my opinion, I think that these two big boss monsters here are sort of up for grabs. If they don't do anything, I won't be surprised because Brandon hasn't been doing anything, but this is just kind of where I've got that sitting for now. Along with some more of the wishful thinkings, I kind of got off the topic from Dryden, but I got Meow Meow Mew on here because obviously Prank Kids hasn't done anything since like 2022. There was a big hype when this deck was around, along with the Adventure Engine and all that kind of stuff. And then it just ended up falling right off the face of the earth when Meow Meow Moo was banned. I think that it'd be decent to try that out, bringing it back. I'm not sure if you could splash this around with any modern decks, but Prank Kids running pure, I think, bring it back. I really like seeing like really strong pure decks play out. It's sort of like these decks that are combining several engines and all this kind of stuff and playing a lot of toxic cards that I dislike, but I really think that it'd be kind of cool to try to bring this back. And then you guys probably have been eyeballing this up. You guys know that I love Tearlaments. I've left a lot of deck profiles here on the channel, and for those of you guys who haven't seen my deck profiles, I play this deck all the time. I test with it constantly, and in my opinion, I guess I kind of jumped the gun here a little bit because we need to talk about the other card. If you've seen any other Banlist prediction videos, I guarantee that this card has been in it. Everybody immediately thinks that this card is going to be banned. I hope it will. Konami isn't always the best about sort of following along with what we want, but I think that at the moment it's pretty clear that obviously they want to sell the Fiendsmith engine, but if they go ahead and leave Beatrice unbanned, it is just going to leave way too much power into the game. It's going to add more barrier to entry to getting that Fiendsmith engine, and so overall banning Beatrice makes the Fiendsmiths just sort of do Fiendsmith stuff, and then can get you into other possible things. But really, Beatrice being in the game is just a little bit too much at the moment. So and it probably will be forever because there's just too much to do. So in my opinion, if you ban Beatrice, that does open up a small window to be able to limit Kit Kolos and just sort of see what Tearlaments can do. This means that Tearlament players would likely drop like the Destiny Hero Malicious engine, which would also just sort of give more credence to Konami taking Malicious off the ban list last time and letting it be completely unlimited. Now, if you bring Beatrice off, now you can't splash that around as much, and now Tearlaments aren't going to be playing that engine. They're just going to be playing like pure, regular fusion kind of stuff. They're going to be playing links and XEs and stuff, but overall you're going to drop the Beatrice. You're probably going to drop that Malicious engine, and I think that Tearlaments would be the better for it. I think it'd be really nice if they had an in archetype way to mill 5, which was obviously the intent. So I think that would be really cool. There will be a lot of limits on this list, so getting on just to knock out Yubel out of the discussion, I don't have a whole lot here. Yama is one that there has been discussion on whether or not it should be banned. This is one that I don't think will be getting banned because it is set to be reprinted in the upcoming 2024 Megatins. So I'm not really too sure where this is going to go, whether this can get limited here or is just going to go in the no change category and stay unlimited. I'm not too sure on how to hit Yubel, and it seems like pretty much everybody's idea is to go through the Unchained cards or to go in through the field spell here. So we're just going to put that there. And then another field spell is going to be the Sangan Summoning. Really big one on everybody's list. I don't think that this card deserves to be banned at the moment, but I do think that it is valid to put it to 1 and then just sort of see what happens. Another big one that has been sort of bopping around on people's lists is Pot of Prosperity. Prosperity, I'm not too sure what other decks it's all getting splashed in these days, but definitely with the Tenpai, it just sort of allows you to be able to, get to that Sangan Summoning or the Pydra or get to whatever going second card you need to break through your opponent's board. So overall, I think that it is on people's radar for Pot of Prosperity to get banned or limited. But I'm not too certain here, but I am going to go with my gut here on this one and say that fairly certain we could be seeing this getting limited. I don't want this deck to be a huge massacre list or anything, or any that's not sort of the vibe I'm going for, but I do think that I could see this happening, so I just wanted to discuss it on here. Other interesting opinions that I've seen out there on the internet and other videos has been Heavy Storm. This is one that I just don't really agree with, that it could come back. I can't immediately think of any decks that could break this card, but I don't really want to find out what they are. Obviously, there's several reasons why Heavy Storm has been banned for so long, and we've only gotten more and more cards throughout the years that can abuse destruction effects, all that kind of stuff. One big one that always came to mind as a kid, or maybe like 8-10 years ago, 10 years ago exactly, was like in Harpies. You could use this with the Hysteric Sign, but now Harpies is a little bit too outdated to where you can't really wait till the end phase, add 3 Harpy cards, and then go on to your next turn, because you're probably not going to get a next turn because the game is just too fast these days. But there are totally other decks similar to Harpies that could abuse this kind of immediate set a card to the field, destroy it, all that kind of stuff. One card that I am looking forward to possibly coming unlimited is Dino Wrestler Pankratops. When you're going to be adding this many cards onto the list, I do think it's important to just sort of clean up the list where you don't need things, and Dino Wrestler Pankratops hasn't been doing anything as of late. It's really good in Dino decks, or just any other deck that is trying to go second and is trying to break through specific cards. But in my opinion, having sort of like a card that just destroys one for one trade, sometimes it's just not good enough these days. Another one that some people are kind of talking about is Thunder Dragon Colossus. Now, this was a really important one that people were really scared of on the last list when it came to 1. But in general, there's not going to be much of a difference if you're bringing this from 1 to 2 as far as decks that are just spamming it in. But if you do put this to 2 or even 3, it is really going to help out the pure Thunder Dragon decks. So I do really think that would be interesting. Chaos Space is another interesting one that you could talk about. I don't have it on this list here, but if you tried bringing back Chaos Space to help out dragon decks as well as Thunder Dragons, it would be kind of interesting. Also, as you guys can see here, I do got my buddy Block Dragon here. This was just sort of for the memes for Flameburge being on here. My opinion is, if you allow Flameburge to last in the game, bring back Block Dragon. So Block Dragon should be limited or unlimited if you're going to be keeping Flameburge. So I'm obviously going to be putting this in the no change category. I don't think that anything's going to be happening with Block Dragon, but this card, prime time for an errata. Please errata this so that it's like a once per turn, like you can only use one of its effects or something like that. But Block Dragon, I want it back. But if Snake Eyes can have Flameburge, then Adamancipators can have Block Dragon. That's my TED Talk. Thank you. Another big one in the ban section, a lot of people are talking about King Calamity. Basically, from what I found out, any card that has Calamity in its name just shouldn't be allowed anymore because they are just absurd, locks you out of the game, all that kind of stuff. This is mainly, I think that if I saw these 4 hits, I would be happy. But I don't know. It seems like we're going to be... It seems like we have a big list on our hands, but these are the top 4 that I say that I'm rooting for. And then along with that, we might as well just talk about the other big 3, which whether you're talking about Snake Eyes or just any other generic decks, big one that has been on people's list is, do you ban IP Masquerena, Apaloosa, or SP Little Knight? SP Little Knight's not really much in the discussion, but it kind of just gets like tagged along as like the just sort of like a side consequence of these guys. In my opinion, I genuinely don't think that these cards are a problem, especially if you ban Flameburge. Now, I was talking to my buddy Israel about this. Shout out to Israel. Probably one, just one of the biggest Snake Eye players that I know. He said now if you leave Flameburge unlimited, then there enters the discussion on which one of these ends up needing to get banned. So in my opinion, Flamebirds just needs to stay there. I think that we've sort of gotten used to being able to use Appaloosa and IP in generic link spam decks or even just like regular decks. And in my opinion, I think that IP really helps work with SP. So these two cards just kind of go hand in hand. So they make sense to stay in the game together. And Appaloosa, I hate to be the guy that says to draw the out, but there are just so many ways to work around this card. You've got Dark Ruler No More, Infinite Impermanence, Forbidden Droplet, Triple Tactics Talent. There are just a myriad of ways to work around this. You've got Kaijus, all those other kind of cards that tribute. There's just tons and tons of ways to work around Appaloosa, or you just need to go in, waste 1 or 2 monsters, go to your battle phase, attack over it. If that's all your opponent is ending on, basically, is an Appaloosa, and they're just sort of saying, "Hey, Appaloosa, pass, break my board, buddy." It's similar to like certain other decks like Virtual World back in the day used to force you to go into the battle phase to work around Fossil Dyna and all that kind of stuff. It's just sort of like a check that some of those decks give you. I think that Appaloosa has plenty of ways around it, and as of late, it's only really become a problem. If you think back to the past few years, we've had ever since like Tearlament, or we had Sword Soul formats, and then eventually we got into Sprite and Tearlament formats. Then we had Cash Tira. We had a bunch of other stuff in the meantime. And then finally now Appaloosa is kind of becoming a problem with Snake Eyes and a few other decks. I just don't really see it as being that big of an issue. If it does end up kind of escalating and whatnot, then I'm open to this discussion, but I just don't think that it's all that relevant. Other stuff that can come unlimited, we have Armageddon Knight. This is a card that just doesn't really do anything. Eventually it would be really interesting to see a deck that can it would be bad, but it would be interesting to see a 1-card combo where you just normal summon an Armageddon Knight, pitch a dark monster to the graveyard, and then you're able to combo. It'd be interesting to see what that deck would be, but I'm not too sure what it would be at this point. Arch Nemesis Protoss. This is a card that, similar to Thunder Dragon, people overreacted a little bit to. I think that Protoss is definitely the more toxic and worse card out there. But overall, Sword Soul really isn't doing much, and there's not really other decks that are abusing this, except for maybe I've heard Ritual Beasts and stuff, but we'll just sort of see what happens with Protoss. But I think at the moment, since it hasn't been tearing up the meta, I just think that there's no real reason for Konami to panic and ban this card. Other stuff that can come up, we have Kirin. This card is doing nothing, and it's at 1, I believe, right now, so why not just bring it up to 3? Pendulums haven't done much. Another Pendulum card that is coming up to get an errata, hopefully potentially soon, is going to be Plush Fire, so I do have that on here. And then also with an upcoming errata should be Summon Sork, so this is just another one that I thought is a really good idea to toss in here. Getting on into some of the stun stuff, we have Skill Drain. So Skill Drain's an interesting one. We've had a lot of Floodgates going down to 1, so sort of Deck Lockdown and Skill Drain are ones that I wanted to talk about. Deck Lockdown's one that I don't think is too far on Konami's radar, so that really just doesn't have much relevance here. But Skill Drain, definitely one that I can see going to limited. It's been one that they've bopped around the ban list. It's probably been at every position being banned, limited, unlimited, semi-limited, all that kind of stuff. So I think that probably going back to limited would be fine. At the moment, I'm not too uptight on Skill Drain, but I think that eventually here pretty soon, Konami and the player base is going to want to hit Runic Stun in some form and fashion, because that's sort of the most popular way to play the deck. I think that Runic Fountain sitting at 2 is still pretty decent. Going to 1 is probably a bit of a death sentence, but also if they sort of ran with the plan like this, Fountain to 1, and then they just sort of say hey, Runic combo as much as you want, but if your opponent if you're in a grind game and your opponent finally draws Cosmic Cyclone and they get rid of your Runic Fountain, and now you just have to play off of your resources, it is still doable as long as you've gone far enough into where you've out advantaged your opponent. So really Fountain going to 1 is not absurd, but I could also sort of see it where Fountain stays at 2. I'm just going to keep it in the no change category here, and we sort of see this happen. Spooky Dogwood, I don't really see this being too high on their radar. And another hand trap / floodgate shifter. They just have refused to touch this card constantly. And at the moment it is doing quite a bit, but it's not doing as much as like it did when Fluanderies was like a tier 1, tier 2 deck. I don't know if Fluanderies was ever really tier 1, but I think it was for a little while. But yeah, at the moment I just don't really see them hitting this, but I would definitely like them to, or at least put it to 1. And there's been some discussion even about Called By moving around the ban list. I've heard Called By should be banned. I've also heard Called By the Grave should be semi-limited or unlimited. So I have no idea where hand traps and Called By the Grave really sit these days. And then with that discussion, I do sort of see a uptick in crossout designator. I'm not sure if it's really gotten to the toxicity yet where this card needs to be banned, but I could sort of see some movement on this. So at the moment, I was thinking semi-limited does not seem out of the realm for Konami to do. Also, I believe in the OCG, they did have this card semi-limited for quite a while. Maybe it is currently semi-limited. I'm not too up to date on the OCG, but semi-limited crossout designator doesn't seem horrible. I've lost to it at locals a few times, but in general, I'm not really out for blood on this card, so I don't really have a strong opinion. But this card being able to sort of help out those high-tier decks like Snake Eyes, and especially like Tenpai, who's playing just like tons of hand traps and board breakers and sort of stuff like that, being able to just cross out and just be like, oh, hey, guess what? Like, you're playing all these disrupt cards. Guess what? I have all those in my deck too. So that's not going to happen. So, overall, crossout designator, I could see some movement there. And then next thing we've got on the list is just sort of some other stuff. Gamma coming to 2 could be interesting. Just sort of cleaning up this list here. Just kind of got some extra stuff. And then D-Barrier. D-Barrier's one kind of goes along with Heavy Storm, ironically, where people were saying, like, hey, bring back Heavy Storm. And I'm like, what do you have against, like, like Labyrinth and, like, other trap decks out there? Like, is Labyrinth really being that big of a problem? And I think to some degree, like, Labyrinth is a little bit toxic. And I did hear a really great argument that Labyrinth has kind of lately been like a gatekeeper for other trap decks. So like if you're a guy who really likes playing trap decks, control decks, like why not just play Labyrinth? Like why would you play Eldritch and other decks when you can just play Lab? And that's actually a really interesting take. So I'd like to sort of see some development there, but that's like a whole other kind of discussion. We've kind of rambled on for quite a bit here, but Heavy Storm, definitely bad for trap decks and stuff out there. But I would be interested to see a limit here to D-Barrier or a ban, but definitely a limit would be interesting because then that just totally takes away the ability to use Trap Trick to be able to banish a copy and set another copy to the field, because now you're only going to have one copy, so you can't do that. There are other ways to cheat this out, but I would not mind seeing a limit to this. At the moment, this card hasn't been like overly oppressive because we've had, Snake Eyes is generally like a sub XZ, or no, they don't really XZ, a sub Link deck and stuff like that. So I mean, really, we're going to be seeing some XZs with Beatrice and stuff, but overall, I don't really see a huge demand for this card to be banned, but I could also definitely see it. And then Close World, this is just an interesting one. Sort of like I discussed at the beginning of this video with how Lubellion has not been slated for a reprint yet. I do just find it interesting with the Fiendsmith engine having come out. Beatrice is huge on everyone's radar, but this card is surprisingly was printed as a common, and it is just, in my opinion, it's really interesting when Konami goes ahead and does stuff like that. Now, when they release Sangan, or the Tenpai deck, that deck obviously was printed in very, very low rarities as all commons, one super, and then eventually we got an ultra rare a few weeks ago in an Infinite Forbidden. But this card being the bridge to the deck being able to like be super generic, and then also be printed as a common, sort of gives me vibes that eventually they might think that they'll ban this card. But at the moment, I really, really do sort of like what this card does. I'm a huge fan of Underworld Goddess, so obviously I don't think that it's the time for them to do this yet. I think that banning Beatrice is going to be just sort of like the big play for Konami to do. But anyways, guys, I feel like I've rambled on long enough. I've sort of given you guys my opinions on each of these steps. I think that if we did get, sort of like if you cut off the bottom here where we have the no change category, if we saw all of these limitations and hits, semi-limits, unlimits, I think that this would be a really, really cool format. I think that it would hopefully be fairly healthy. I have no idea what I'm saying, obviously. I don't have oversight on what all of these would have ramifications on. I'm sure Tearlaments, some sort of thing would be busted if this happened with Kit Colosse, but I think it would be really cool to experiment with. I'm a big fan of Tearlament. I'm a big fan of like keeping the boss monsters in your deck, except for Flame Burst, fuck you. But yeah, anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you guys again so much for watching the video. I know that this one was long. It's just been such an interesting format, I just couldn't stop talking, but anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Go ahead and check out the sponsor, Mammoth Headwear, if you guys are interested, and use my link in the description down below. I believe I forgot to mention that earlier. There will be a link down below. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think about this ban list prediction, and we'll see you guys for the next one, and for when we get that ban list revealed. Peace.